Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful week working with Dash and building data apps in Python. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build this app with the goal of teaching you all about the Dash slider. So this app is taking data about the number of severe storms in the United States, and it's going to use the slider to allow the user to decide what number of severe storms they want to see. And the more severe storms they choose, the more years are going to show up, because some years have had more severe storms than other. And the range slider will allow the user to highlight in orange those severe storms where the costs in billions was between the range that they chose. So for example here, in 2011 and 2020, the cost was between 30 billion and 40 billion that year because of the severe storms. If you go all the way down, you'll see everything is in orange. If you go down here, only these years had the cost of 0 to 5 billion. So we're going to learn all about the slider, the tooltip, and everything you can do with a slider in Dash. Now this is based on the book that I co-authored with Anne-Marie and Chris Mayer, which is now available to buy, the Book of Dash. And as part of the book, we built a GitHub repository that you could use as you follow along and read the book. And we are also creating this bonus content. And in this bonus content, Anne-Marie wrote these 2 articles on buttons and sliders. And the sliders article is very interesting, this tutorial, and much of what I am going to show you today is talked about in this article. So to follow along, I would recommend, first of all, I'm going to put this link under the video in case you want to buy the book or just show your appreciation for my channel and want to support me. Buying the book is a great way to do it, even if you end up, for some reason, giving it as a gift to your best friend. So I'm going to give this also link under the video so you can follow along. This is my own personal GitHub, Dash by Plotly, where I put all my videos and apps for the videos. And if you go into the Dash components, slider, download this app.py file, just copy everything and put it inside your Python IDE. I'm using PyCharm, and then let's do this together. Let's get started. Okay, so first of all, we're importing all the necessary libraries. Then we're going to take data about the severe storm in the US from this link and CEI. And this CSV file I downloaded into from here into my GitHub, so this will run for you without the CSV if you don't want to download it. This we're going to build later. Here we start the app, and here we put our layout. This is our define our layout, and the layout is whatever is going to show on the page. And on this page, we're going to see a few things. In this page, we're going to see the title as an H1, which is just a big header, a header 1. And then we're going to see a small label, a smaller title, like this. And then the Dash slider with a bunch of properties that we're going to go over soon. And so this is the slider. And then we're going to see another small title, another label, the range slider, which has 2 handles. And this is the main difference between a slider and a range slider. A range slider will have 2 handles or more. 1, 2. A slider only has 1 handle. You can start, the minimum can start, in this case it's 0, but you can start it from 2 or 3 for whatever, but you will only have 1 handle for a slider as opposed to 2. And then below we have an empty graph, and we're going to later in the video go over the callback to show you how we are connecting the values of the slider and the range slider to filter the data and create a graph, a bar chart. And this bar chart is then returned as a figure inside our graph component so it could be displayed on the page. All right, so let's get started with the slider. So the slider here has many different properties. I'm probably using only about half of them, but I really recommend, I want to teach you how to learn on your own and how to learn Dash and use your own time to learn from the documentation, so you don't only depend on my videos. So there's two ways you can read about the properties. You can either do go into the Dash documentation, which I'm going to put under the video, into the slider component, and at the very, you can see examples here, or you can go all the way to the bottom and you'll see all the different properties, and you can read more about each and every property in the slider. Or you can, in PyCharm, you can click on Control left click on the slider, and it will show you all these different properties and the order of the properties. What comes first, what comes second. Okay, so let me save you some reading and tell you that the minimum value is exactly that. It's the minimum initial value that is allowed on the slider. So in this case, I want it to be the minimum value of the severe store and count column. So severe store and count column has all these values from 0 all the way to 13 is the highest value. So I'm going to take the minimum. So this will be equivalent to 0, like this. Okay, and then the maximum, this will be equivalent to 13. So that means that the slider can only go between 0 and 13. 13 is the highest and 0 is the lowest. Step 1, so it's only going to go, the user will only be able to do steps of 1. If this was steps of 2, let's see what happens, save. The user will be able to do steps of 2. There's no 5, there's no 7, only steps of 2. 12, and so on and so on. And then initial, this is value, it means initial value is 13. So when you first refresh the app, you see the initial value is 13 when the app first loads. And then we have a tooltip, and a tooltip is a dictionary where you decide where you want the tooltip to be placed, underneath the handle, right in the bottom. But you can also see in the Dash documentation, where is tooltip, you can also do it as left, right, top, bottom, top left, top right, and so on and so on. So you can change that. Always visible is either true or false, and this means that now it's true, but if I put it false, it means that it will only be visible when I hover with my mouse over it. You see, invisible, visible. Tooltip, invisible, visible, or invisible probably is slightly better English to say invisible. Okay, and then update mode is drag, and again you have several options here. Read the documentation because everything is in here. Update mode, if you go to read it, all of this, it would say you have either mouse up or drag. And what it's saying here is that by default it's mouse up. And let's see what happens if we put the default mouse up. When it's mouse up, it means that the app is going to register the value or identify the value chosen only when I unclick the mouse. So I'm clicking, right? Now it's on 4, but I'm just moving the mouse. I'm not letting go of the button. So it's not registering any value. It's not doing anything. But if I leave the mouse right now on 8, now you see it activates, it registered the value, it understands the value was chosen, and therefore it triggers the callback, which updates everything and adds more bars to the bar graph. See, so this is mouse up, not doing anything, nothing. Leave the button of the mouse, unclick, and now we see a value is registered that triggers the callback. But if I change this to drag mode, it means that the value will be registered anytime I move the mouse, even if I didn't leave the button. See, I still have my finger on the button, and it's registering the values. That's the difference. Now persistence and persistent type allows the app to remember what is the last value chosen before the app was closed. So these usually go together, persistent true or false. In this case I want it to be true because I want the app to remember the value. But here I can decide the persistent type. Do I want the app to remember the value only until we close the app? Let's see, session is until we close the app. So right now let's put the value at 7, refresh, and it's going to be on 7. But if I close the app and restart it, close the browser, sorry, and restart it, you'll see now it's back to 13. So this is session. Memory will remember this value until the user deletes the cookies from the browser. And local, I think, is the shortest. As soon as you refresh the app, it will forget the values. Okay, or the browser tab. Take a look, try it out, try memory here or local and see the difference. Just move the value and see if it saves after you refresh or after you close a tab or after you close a browser. Okay, so that's all about the slider. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, like a trick, before we go into the RangeSlider, is if you know the order of the properties. Let's see, look at the order here. Just left click on slider, and you'll see minimum, max, steps, marks, and value. You can actually min, max, step, marks, and value. You don't have to declare them, right? So you can say minimum is like this. I won't declare this. I'm not going to declare this. And then we know that after step is marks. So so I have to put, I'm going to call this value because this is not the fourth property. This is the fifth. I could either leave it like this, or I could say marks would be no, just it's better to just do it like this. If marks is the next one and you're not defining marks, then make sure you define value, because value is not the fourth property. Value is the fifth property in the list. So this is kind of a shortcut, because this will result in exactly the same slider properties or information without defining explicitly writing down explicitly the properties. Okay. Here is actually in the order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks and steps. Let me see, min, max, steps, marks, and value. So I could just do this, and it would be exactly the same without defining like that. Okay, this will result in exactly the same RangeSlider, because this is the correct order of the properties. Tooltip is not the sixth one. So tooltip, the sixth one is drag value. So we have to say tooltip equals so on and so on and so on. All right. So let's look at the RangeSlider. Remember, the RangeSlider is very similar to the slider. It just has two handles. And in this case, I'm saying the minimum value is going to be the minimum value from the cost in billions in this column. So the minimum value is 0. So this is going to be 0. The maximum is going to be, I'm using math ceiling. So I'm just going to round the number up because I want it to be an integer, not a float. So I'm going to say max of this value, and now the max of this value is 41.6. And if I do max ceiling, this will be equal to 42. So I'm going to say 42. You can see here all the way is 42. And steps is 1, so we only do like by steps of 1, 2, 3, so on. Now the marks is how I created these $1 billion text using this. See, so I just did, to define a mark, you have to do a dictionary where the key is a location on the slider. So the location is going to be in this case 0, I chose 0 and I wanted to say $0. And the next one, you could say 2 or 3. I want it to be 5. This to be the next mark to be 5. So I'm saying the location is going to be 5, and the text is going to be $5 billion, and so on and so on. But you can choose any location and any text that you want, as long as it's between the minimum and the maximum. Initial value 0 to 10. So if I refresh, you'll see initial value 0 to 10. Tooltip, drag mode, just like above, tooltip and drag mode, and then my ID. So this is all about the slider and the range slider. Highly recommend you read more in the documentation, because there are a few more cool things that you can do with the slider, a few more interesting properties. So now we'll finish with the callback. And in the callback, what we're doing is we're taking the first value of the slider, endstorm, we'll call it endstorms. The second argument, $range, refers to the value of the range slider, right? And we're going to filter the data frame and build a graph, or update the color of the bars, and then return this figure into the figure property of the graph, so it's displayed. Now, one thing you should always remember, you should always figure out and understand what is the type of argument. So this endstorms is whatever is assigned to the value of my slider. So this is 13. Now this is an integer. Right now it's 13, but if this changes to 3, then this is 3, right? Oops, 3. But more importantly, this is an integer. Now this $range is the value, it's what is assigned to the value of my range slider value. So this is a list. It starts with 0 to 10, but if the user chooses 0 to 15, this becomes 0 to 15 as a list, okay? As a list. So we know that this is integer and this is a list. So first we're going to use take the endstorms, the number that the user chose, and we're going to create a Boolean series from the severe storm count column. So here I'm saying between 0 to endstorms, which is 13 when we first start the app, and then it could be 7 if the user moves this to 7. This is 7, and then this is 7. So between 0 and 7, including both, including 0 and including 7. So this will create just a simple Boolean series that we can just print it out so you can see. Let's raise this. It's always good to print out inside, and you'll see that we chose 0 to 7 of this column. So this is 8, so this row will be false. This will be false, this will be false. Where is it? This row 9 or row 8 will be true. So if you see here, false, 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 false. Row 7 is true, and then row 11 is false again, because this is 10 and this is more than 7. So this is just a Boolean, and then we're going to use this Boolean to filter the data frame. So only those rows in the data frame that are true actually appear. So it's going to be a smaller data frame, a smaller data set. And with that data set, what we are going to do is we're going to take this smaller data set that only has rows with up to 7 storms, and we're going to build a data frame with the bar graph with that data frame, year x-axis, severe storms y-axis, and I'm just doing I'm fixing the y range and the x range so it doesn't move around every time I update the callback. Try to remove this and see what happens. See the difference. Okay. So this slider adds or takes away some of the bar markers from the graph, depending on how many storms of the year user wants to look at. Now, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take the $range to create a new list of years, and then have those years colored, those markers of the bar markers colored in orange if they are between this costs. All right. So if the user chooses 15 to, I don't know, 25, only those years where the cost was between 15 billion to 25 billion, this one for example, 2019, only this year's will be orange. 2019, orange. But if a year like 2020 was above or outside this range, then it will stay blue. It will stay the normal color, right? 2020 was $37 billion in costs. So this is not within the range. If we want to see that, we'll have to go all the way up to 37 and see how 2020 changes. There we go. Now it's within that range. In fact, if you go to 30 billion all the way to 42 billion, only 2 years are within that range. And we do that here. For the interest of time, I'm not going to necessarily explain this, but what I would recommend for you to see what's going on, just do print Boolean series 2, and then just do after this, do print filtered, so you'll see what these are. And once you print them, then you'll be able to better understand this, which is just going into every year inside the x-axis of the figure, right? Every year of this figure that's built, and if the year exists inside this new list of years, then color that marker in orange. If it doesn't exist, color it, leave it in blue. Right? If you have any questions, you don't understand this or what I'm doing here, I think you'll understand this. But if you don't, you can always ask me on YouTube under my video. So I hope you really enjoyed this. If you did, you learned a lot, and you'd like to support my channel, keep in mind that this channel is membership based. It only exists because of people like you that watch it and support it. So thank you for considering. There is a link to the Patreon. There's a link to YouTube membership under the video. Thank you. I hope you learned a lot. Always remember, we're better together, so help each other out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.